One of the biggest questions fans addicted to Discovery's Moonshiners seem to wonder is how do the cast members, many of whom are involved in legit distilling businesses, not get into trouble when they are making off-the-grid moonshine in the woods? The fastest answer is that almost all of the cast are licensed distillers by their respective states of residence to make alcohol. So the air of the outlaw distiller is more a reality TV construct than a real legal issue. One thing to note is that several of these cast members originally made the shine illegally well before the licenses were given. The act of making moonshine in the woods, outside of the legal bottling and taxation parameters, is pretty much illegal across the board. For those not up on the series, Moonshiners is a docudrama reality television series on Discovery where a cast of characters who produce moonshine in the Appalachian Mountains, in Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia, are given the spotlight. The guys had given interviews to local FOX news affiliates and revealed that once the show is on the air, there is no retroactive arrests made for any wrongdoing. Allegedly, you have to be caught in the act. Moonshiner stars Tim Smith and Stephen Ray Tickle went on FOX to explain how they sidestep any lawman. In an excerpt from their interview, Tim and Tickle explain in detail their thoughts on the fine line between TV and jail time, and they say it is really all about money, taxes. Tickle: "We're not sitting where we were at the time. You know, they watch me on TV Tuesday nights at 9. I'm still not sitting in the same spot at 10 o'clock when that show goes off. It's non-taxed. That's pretty much the only reason it's illegal, Tim. There's not really a big fear here. It's just that the government can't get their money accounted for. That's all it is. They don't have a taste regulation today. I mean, right now, the legal brand of whiskey on the shelf, there's no taste regulator on it. You can go buy anything and say, I don't like it. It doesn't taste good. There's no regulation on it." Tickle: "The federal government does not make you have to make a good product. They just care that you're paying the taxes." Tim: "They just care about the alcohol level in it and how much you make. I want my money." Tickle: "And that's why moonshine's illegal, because there's no taxes being paid on it. It's not that it's unregulated or that the government thinks it could possibly be an inferior product, which if you know what you're doing making moonshine, that's absolutely what you don't want to put out there. Your product, you can't put a label on it if you're making it out in the woods. Your product has to sell itself. If you've got a bad product, nobody will ever buy shine from you again. According to Kentucky law, you can get in a heap of trouble if you make shine on the down low. Owning a still in Kentucky for the intended purposes of distilling moonshine is illegal, and being caught with a still for the purpose of distilling moonshine is a Class B misdemeanor, with additional convictions being Class A misdemeanors. And Tennessee is not much better either. It is illegal to own a still for the purpose of distilling moonshine in the state of Tennessee. The law is specific about the use for manufacturing ethanol, but not about owning a still or using a still for distilling water, essential oils, etc. Because it is specific to only alcohol manufacturing, it should be legal to own a still as long as it is not used to manufacture alcohol. North Carolina outlaws the do-it-yourself distiller too. It is illegal to distill moonshine in North Carolina without a distilling permit, even for home consumption or personal use. 27 CFR 1.21. But because this is a commercial license, the state will expect that you will be making spirits commercially and not for personal use. 27 CFR 1.24. A distillation operation may not be located in a residence, a yard, a shed, or other enclosure connected with a residence. It is legal to own a still, and to use a still for non-ethanol production, such as distilling water or making essential oils, as long as ethanol is not a byproduct. Catch up on the latest episode of Moonshiners, which gives more insight as to how these guys get away with it, and make their shine. Moonshiners airs Tuesdays on Discovery Channel. How do moonshiners not get caught and end up in trouble? The art of moonshining has long been associated with a sense of rebellion, secrecy, and an intricate dance between the law and those determined to defy it. Historically, moonshiners were those who distilled alcohol, usually whiskey, illegally, often in rural areas where they could avoid the watchful eyes of authorities. While moonshining has evolved over time, the core principle remains the same: producing alcohol for personal profit without paying taxes or adhering to legal regulations. But how do these clandestine distillers manage to evade law enforcement for so long? What happens when they inevitably do get caught? The origins of moonshining began in earnest in the United States during the late 1700s and early 1800s, particularly after the introduction of federal taxes on alcohol. Farmers, many of whom grew excess grain, realized they could turn their surplus into homemade whiskey, which could be sold at a higher price than the raw crops. This lucrative side business, however, came with a price. The government taxed alcohol sales. As a result, many moonshiners went underground, operating their stills in secret locations to avoid paying these taxes. The practice was so pervasive that it became a part of American folklore. The name moonshine itself comes from the fact that many distillers would only work under the cover of darkness, using the light of the moon to keep their activities hidden. Why moonshiners stay undetected for decades? Moonshiners have employed clever methods to stay one step ahead of the law. Their ability to remain undetected and evade authorities can be attributed to several factors, from their intimate knowledge of the land to innovative techniques for hiding their stills. Here's a breakdown of how moonshiners manage to stay off the radar for so long. Remote location. Of the key strategies employed by moonshiners is the selection of remote and difficult-to-reach locations. Distillers often set up shop deep in the woods, in secluded valleys, or in caves where they are unlikely to attract attention. These areas are typically far from civilization and difficult for law enforcement to access, especially in the pre-modern era when roads and communication systems were less developed. In addition, the topography of these locations works to the moonshiners' advantage. Dense forests, steep hills, and rugged terrain act as natural barriers that discourage law enforcement from investigating. Even today, moonshiners continue to operate in remote areas where the risk of discovery is low too. Deceptive practices. Moonshiners are known for their ingenuity and creativity when it comes to hiding their operations. Over the years, they have perfected a number of tricks designed to avoid detection. For example, during Prohibition in the 1920s, when federal agents were actively hunting down illegal distilleries, moonshiners would often build their stills inside abandoned barns, hiding them beneath piles of hay. In some cases, the stills were even disguised as farm equipment or other common items, allowing them to blend in seamlessly with their surroundings. Another common tactic involves covering up the telltale signs of a moonshining operation. Many moonshiners would carefully hide the remnants of their distillation process, such as the large copper stills or discarded barrels, by burning them or burying them in the ground. By keeping the operation clean and tidy, they reduce the likelihood of being discovered by someone passing by or by law enforcement who may be patrolling the area. 3. The use of smugglers and runners. Even the most successful moonshiner may not be able to keep their operation a secret indefinitely. To mitigate the risk of exposure, many distillers rely on a network of smugglers or runners who are responsible for transporting the illegal booze to buyers. These runners are highly skilled at navigating both the wilderness and urban areas, ensuring the alcohol reaches its destination without attracting the attention of law enforcement. In some cases, runners would use clever tactics to avoid detection, such as driving late at night or using false vehicle tags. Others would use secret routes that only a few trusted individuals knew, minimizing the risk of being caught. These runners often acted as the lifeblood of the moonshine business, allowing distillers to focus on production while avoiding the potentially dangerous task of distribution for corruption and bribery. Another factor that has allowed moonshiners to operate with relative impunity is the role of corruption within law enforcement. During the early years of moonshining, especially in the rural South, law enforcement officers could be easily bribed to turn a blind eye to illegal activities. Whether through cash payments, alcohol, or other forms of compensation, some officers were willing to look the other way when it came to moonshine operations. The extent of corruption varied depending on the region, but it was not uncommon for moonshiners to have a network of sympathetic allies within the local sheriff's department or federal government. This allowed them to evade detection for extended periods of time, sometimes even while operating in plain sight.